Good morning, everybody. Drinking my green tea again. That's my go-to drink during the day. Coffee's for the morning, and then I drink green tea throughout the day. I prefer the diet that has no sugar in it, no corn syrup for certain. Can't have that. All right. Today is just going to be one of those off-topic days again. I was sitting there watching the news and listening to these guys talk and how they can just make stuff up. And they're going to have a dilemma coming up here soon when they try to explain what happens to us. We know that we have a rapture, and there's a lot of us, and we're all going to be disappearing here at the same time. Any good scientist will tell you that if there's any aliens out there, one, they'd have no reason to come to us in our direction. Now, we're not completely sure how old everything is because there's some problems in the science on that. But we can tell you that by looking at a section of sky, look at a 1-inch section of sky and count the number of stars in it. And when you really get in close, you find out that most of the lights that we see are not stars, but more galaxies, which are millions and billions and trillions of stars in each one of those, depending on the size. If you want to go pure logic and numbers, there are trillions and trillions of possibilities that there's another Earth-like planet out there. Okay. From that point of view, we can argue that point. However, we see no proof. We're broadcasting out into the universe our hello, we're here message, not knowing whether the so-called aliens are friendly or not. We'll get to that in a second. And we've gotten no response back. And we haven't been doing it for very long. And we know that any radio waves that we send out there are going at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. It takes even time to go to the moon and back. It takes about 8 minutes for the light from the sun to get to us at 93 million miles away. So if it were to blow up, we wouldn't know for 8 minutes. The distances are enormous. The estimate by some of these scientists that the closest possible inhabited world could be 33,000 light years away. Now, how do they get up with that number? Well, they have to do a lot of something to come up with that number. But they can't get them any closer. And as far as we know right now, you can't travel faster than the speed of light. Einstein says it, and our tests. I worked at the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center out in Palo Alto, California, so I've got some background in that. We can't accelerate subatomic particles that fast. We can get up close to that, but we can't actually make that mark, which basically means there's no way that anybody can get here faster. The closest star, Proxima Centauri, is roughly 4.5 light years away. And that's just to the closest star. Stars don't mean life. Stars are just stars. We're in the Goldilocks zone, as they call it here with planet Earth. That means that if we go in or out of our orbit just a little bit, we can't possibly survive in this form. Now, we've adapted to this Goldilocks zone, so we fit here. But there could be another Goldilocks zone for a slightly different body type, build, whatever. I'm showing you the theoretical concepts of this. I personally don't believe there's anybody else out there. There's no need to be. God doesn't have to sit there and, well, if it's not going to work on this world, I'll create another one. No, he doesn't have to do that. And he created everything that we see according to the Bible, created the heavens and the earth. We look up and we see the heavens. Now we find out, and the people that wrote this, the heavens weren't very big. Now, the heavens didn't grow. Our ability to see grew. The human eye in a clear environment can see about 4,000 stars. If you're in the city, maybe 20, depends on how many lights. I got street lights around me, which is good for keeping the neighborhood safe, but I can't see the stars. If I want to see more, I got to get out of town. The deserts in the Southwest are a good place for that, Arizona and things like that. How are they going to come up with this? And they have to be able to get people to believe it. So they're going to have to find some aliens. They can't find any. Say, look, the bad Christians were removed from the earth because they were bad. And they were abducted by aliens. We keep hearing about people being abducted by aliens. Well, we finally have proof. I go to sci-fi conventions and I dress up in various costumes. And I can pretend to be on Star Trek or any of the other shows that I like. Who's going to be left to pretend to be aliens? Well, Satan's got lots of demons, and they can take on forms. They can appear to be human form. They often are for us down here, but they could also be alien forms. And they're going to have to dress them up in their alien suits, and they're going to get out there. And I don't know if it's going to be like the movie V. I don't know if it's going to be like the Earth Stood Still. Could be. They're going to have to do all this. They've got lots of science fiction history to pull from to create whatever they want. The best thing to do would be to create something that frankly looks like us, because they can always claim that we were put here by aliens thousands of years ago, that there was no Adam and Eve, unless you count the people that were put here by the aliens. They've got stories that they can tell, and there won't be any Christians around to go, hey, you can't do that. That was a movie in 1950 or whatever. They might come out with something like To Serve Man from Twilight Zone. That's why they came and got all these people. Christians are tastier than the rest of the world. But it's impossible. I just did some number gleaning. I had to put my glasses on for this, just to kind of look at some of the size problems that we have to deal with. How big is our solar system? Well, we've created a term called the astronomical unit, which is basically the distance from here to the sun. And we've got around us, they demoted Pluto from a planet to just a large body. But they say that there are Earth-sized and bigger planets outside that. So what's outside of us? We have our 8 planets here. Neptune's about 30 astronomical units from the sun, so it's pretty good time out there. We've got spaceships, a couple of them, Voyager, that are outside our normal solar system and are still traveling. It would take, at the speed of light, 24 hours or so for the signal to get back. But we've got a Kuiper belt right outside our solar system, which they're saying that Pluto actually belongs to and not our solar system. And it goes out to about 50 astronomical units. Then we have what's called the heliosphere. And it goes out, and outside of that is what they call the Oort zone. And the Oort zone goes all the way out to 100,000 astronomical units. Okay. That's to give you some scale of just our immediate area. And we're moving in the galaxy. The galaxy is spinning. It would take us to get to that nearest star at our current technology level about 80,000 years to get to. So anybody who's going to come and visit us would have to know we're here, what they're going to find when they get here. And we've got broadcasts of TV shows and stuff. You know, what are they going to do when they start picking up Gilligan's Island? Well, these guys are primitive. They're going to have to make up a scenario, and I'm sure that they've already got this all planned out and done. They're going to have to come up with maybe a downed spaceship. The ones that were in Area 51. Area 51 never really had aliens there, but the Air Force was more than happy to let that story go out so that they could say, well, this area is off limits. So that way they could keep testing their experimental planes, developing their military capability. So they didn't want anybody knowing about it. Technology is so good nowadays, though, it's going to be hard to keep some of this stuff hidden. But we've got CGI and a media capable of putting this stuff out. What else do we have out here? Let's see. One of the other things that I was looking at, I love science. And science and the Bible should be, hand in glove. It should fit together perfectly, and it doesn't. But I think when it comes to calculations of time and space and all this stuff, everybody's wrong. The reason they say the Earth is 6,000 years old, because we have 6,000 years worth of generations mentioned in the Bible. There's no other scientific calculation that they can come up with for that. So that's why they say it's 6,000 years. Historically, not everybody would be mentioned in a genealogy. We have two big ones in the New Testament, and we have ones in some of the Old Testament that, maybe cover a few generations. And then when you put those into the other genealogies, you get a full picture, but there's still going to be gaps where they don't include them. So, and when we look at the 6,000 years and they go, well, God created the world in 6 days and a day is 1,000 years, 6,000 years, boom, we're done. Didn't he rest on the seventh day? There should be 7,000 years. You see, there's all kinds of scientific problems in this. And the original calculations were made by evolutionists, by atheists. One of the big problems we have is, when did the dinosaurs live, and when, they go, well, these lived 250 million years ago. Or if we're familiar with Jurassic Park, that would have been 200 to 140, something like that, million years ago. How do they know that? They don't. They just set these out there based on where they figured evolution would have developed. They made up the numbers. I forget what it's called. There's a chart that covers the ages of dinosaurs, and I forget what it's called, but it's as accurate as our food chart was that was created by marketing people wanting to sell product. We know that carbon dating has a limited use, and it's got a lot of assumptions in it. And then you start looking at some of the other dating systems of uranium 235 or 238 as it decays, knowing that they break down over a certain period of time. But if we look at the planet, we're all finally starting to agree that there was one big island at one point in time, Pangea, Atlantis, whatever you want to call it, and that they're moving apart after something hit us. Something big hit us, killing the dinosaurs. We pretty much now agree on that. But when? There's too much stuff to squeeze into 6,000 years. Now, if we know that evolution didn't create them, then either God created everything on this earth and or Satan did. Looking at the dinosaurs, they may be the Nephilim talked about in the Old Testament, where the angels of Satan got together and tried to create, Satan tries to copy everything. So they may have created the dinosaurs within the time period that we're at. So they didn't have to start off in the sea and grow up, although we do have things living in the sea. But they try to connect them with evolution. So science is into fiction writing, and I love science fiction. So that's okay. But I know that it's not true when I watch it. Unfortunately, the world doesn't know that a lot of the stuff that they've come up with, the times, the distances, all this stuff, is all made up. There's no way aliens could get to us, even if they wanted to, because they're limited by science just like we are. The speed of light is the speed of light. Now, there may be a way to get around it, as we see in Star Trek, where they can warp space, but we have no clue how to do that. And even when they warp space, they're not going a million times faster than the speed of light. They're going, factor of 10. They can go faster, but they're not going super fast. These distances are enormous. They come back with, every once in a while, well, this planet could have an oxygen environment. How do they know that? They're guessing off of their spectrometer. Just because there's oxygen is plentiful in the universe, doesn't mean there's life. It's this Goldilocks effect. Not only do you have to be orbiting a planet, you have to be orbiting at the right distance so that we couldn't handle the full effect of the heat. Look at Venus. At one time, we thought that's where everybody was going to come from. All the aliens were going to come from Venus. Steel would melt on the surface of Venus. We couldn't live there. We've managed to get some pictures. I think the Russians are the biggest ones for this, getting some pictures from the surface of Venus. But their specially produced satellites don't last long. An hour or two, I think, is all we've managed to get. We've managed to send a spaceship into the clouds of Jupiter, but it never got to the ground. There's planets that we can't get to properly, but we've gone to some of the moons and flown by those. But their tidal forces on them are so great because of their big planet that they're orbiting. We couldn't live there either. They're grasping for straws, trying to get the public interested, and then, of course, contribute money so they can keep up their research. So this only way that this is going to work for them, if they want to use this narrative, is they're going to have to come up with a way for aliens to get here. They say wormholes. No, that's not how it's going to work. But of course, it's science fiction, so you can make it do whatever you want. Maybe a Stargate. I like the show and the movie, but again, there's not enough science to back up what they're doing. That's good for science fiction. But most of the people here are going to be non-believers in God that are going to be left over after we're gone. They could sell them pretty much anything. And they've got all these demons ready to put their costumes on, play aliens. We have the technology to manufacture something that looks like an alien spaceship. Oh, but it crashed and we can't make it fly. There'd be convenient problems. So I'm telling all this just so that as you're watching the news and seeing different things, and you're seeing, well, they're admitting that there was a UFO program in the military. So they looked, they didn't find anything. Now, UFO simply means unidentified flying object, so they changed the name. It still means the same thing. If you can't identify it, you can't claim it to be an alien. And we have the ability now, as we're finding out with technology, to make all kinds of flying contraptions. You've got drones that you can send up. They shut El Paso airspace down because the Mexican cartels were launching drones so they could watch for the federales. We're moving technology in to protect the wall. The wall is not all the way complete. They're going to keep finishing it, but arresting them and sending them home is actually a cheaper way to do it, as long as you don't let them in millions. We're fixing that. But the whole world is wanting something, wanting someone to arrive and say, here I am to save the day. And the Antichrist is ready. He's got all his demons ready. So start looking in the things, and you're going to see them start coming up with stuff in the news. All right. I love watching science fiction, but I know it's not real when I go into it. And the technology today can make a lot of that real. Back then, some of the technology was comical. Birds up on my roof, I think. All right. We can't trust the media now anyway. So if they start talking about aliens, put it in that category. All right. We are getting out of here soon, so they're starting to prep the news for a lot of this stuff. Just don't fall into the traps. Till we meet in the clouds, God bless.